ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed lunch. I hope you enjoyed the therapy dogs, had a chance. Unfortunately, May Habib from Ryder had an emergency and will not be able to present today. However, we have Gal Aron and also Aditi Kashikar from Documentation Automation Anywhere. They're going to talk about real-life AI-powered content experiences behind the scenes. Take it away, Gal.
Hi, everyone. Good to see all of you. So I'm Gal, I'm the CEO of Zoomin, and Aditi, who is Director of Documentation Automation Anywhere. And we're going to do a practical session about AI and actual implementation of AI in companies, specifically in Automation Anywhere. So it's going to be less of a theoretical session and more of a real-life example, real-life challenges of implementing AI. So before we start, how many of you have heard the term GPT before January of 2023? Yeah? A lot of you. So either you really heard or you're liars. I haven't heard it before. And actually, I had a conversation with one of our team members on a Zoom call, and I asked him something, and he said, let me check with my friend. Let me bring in my friend. And I'm waiting for someone to come to the Zoom call. I know who is going to join the conversation. And he gives me the answer and said, who is your friend? He said, GPT. I said, okay, what is it? And so that's when I heard about the GPT and what it's about. And since then, this thing changed our lives, our personal life, our professional lives. It seems like that's all we're talking about, especially here in this conference. Huge impact. I don't remember a trend like this, a mega trend like this ever, maybe just cloud computing from our history. And we're going to talk today, and we listened to a lot of the sessions here. We saw the impact of AI on so many aspects of our day-to-day work. Today, we're going to focus on one big aspect, which is the customer experience aspect of how AI impacts our customer experience. So if you do look at us as a content industry of how AI impacts the different aspects or the different layers of our day-to-day, and people spoke about this today. So the first thing is about content authoring, of course, and then content management and reviewing the content. And then there is content publishing, of course, and content analytics. But all of these four layers are supposed to serve one big purpose, which is customer service experiences. This is the biggest thing that's being impacted by this, and that's what we're going to focus on today. Before we decide to deep dive into this a little bit, Zoomin started like March of this year. We released a very interesting white paper that takes all those four layers that I just mentioned and talks about the different predictions and trends that we see coming into this tech, into the documentation industry from AI. Those of you who don't have it, I encourage you to scan it or to come to our booth later and download it. A very interesting report. So every company now, every leader, every CEO, every CIO is now considering what are we investing in terms of AI? What is it? Which area are we investing in? Anyone has an idea here? What is the number one topic in terms of investment for enterprises today? Any suggestions? That's in the world of content. But I'm talking in general. I'm a CEO of an enterprise, a big company. Where do I want to put my money? First priority, if I want to invest in AI, right, in my company. I'll give you an example. It can be marketing and content generation. It can be coding or programming. It can be customer success. What's the number one area? Customer service. So you're right. So the number one thing by far across all enterprises in the world and in the US is customer experience and customer service. Okay, the number one topic that CIOs, CTOs, CEOs, everyone is looking at investing in terms of AI is this. To those of you who heard Joe Ward speaking here in the morning, she said also for Salesforce, this is the number one thing, customer experience and customer service. And then she spoke about the impact of content experience on customer experience. So that basically means that the group sitting here and all of the group here in this conference has just become a lot more critical to your organizations in the last 9 months. You're directly impacting the number one topic that every CEO of enterprises today is looking for, which is a customer experience or customer service experience. And companies are understanding this and they're acting on this. And you can see that almost every company, I'm sure that almost every company of you guys here is either exploring this, testing it, or already implementing any kind of applications or features or functionalities that relate to customer service experience. And of course, it has a lot to do with our world of documentation, huge disruption on our industry, and we are all expected to act, okay? Our customers expect us to act, our leadership is expecting us to act, we're all expected to act on doing AI for the purpose of customer experience. I'm going to talk about the evolution, the short-term evolution, because this all started in the last 6 to 9 months. I'm going to talk about the evolution, how we got to this point, through talking about the evolution of Zoomin as a company. So I'm not sure how many of you know Zoomin as a company, but Zoomin was established for a very specific purpose of taking the many, many silos of knowledge and content that companies have, different authoring tools, API content, learning, training, support ticket, knowledge articles, community discussion, taking all those different silos, which are of content, that's created in different formats, in different tools, different taxonomies, different everything, and trying to make all this complexity seamless for the end customer. So we try to create this layer that basically hides all of the complexities you have behind the scenes from your customers. So that's the layer that Zoomin built. And we basically told our customer, listen, we'll provide you this layer. And on top of it, you can build any kind of application. You can either ask us to build you an application, or you can build your own application, which is customer facing, and it's going to use all the knowledge from the left inside those applications. So the main applications that customers have been using are different knowledge bases or help centers or documentation portals. And then a lot of customers start using in-product help solution, meaning taking all this knowledge from the left inside their product, inside a widget, inside Pendo, WalkMe, and things like this. A lot of them started using it inside their support sites, whether it's a ServiceNow support site, a Salesforce support site. So taking all this knowledge inside their support site. And the last area where we saw a lot is for the agents inside their service. So they have the Salesforce Service Cloud, whatever support cloud they're using, take all this knowledge and bring it to their agents so they can provide better answers to their customers. So that was all great. Over the last 3 to 6 months, I would say, we started seeing more and more of those applications embedding all kind of AI features. All kind of AI is coming into those applications, and we're seeing more and more and more. And the reality is that today, any application that is being generated by an enterprise, especially customer-facing application, is expected to embed AI and to be AI first, okay? And there is basically no way back from this. We are all expected to provide the knowledge that we're developing inside those applications, which are all AI applications. A new world, okay? It was very different 9 months ago, but now that's where we are. We need to support our enterprises and their need to create AI applications. So the questions that are all being asked, and all the time, are we ready for this? Are you ready to provide us all the knowledge that we need so I can build an AI application on top of it and provide it to your customers? So what is it that we need to know or to be in order to be GPT or AI ready? 3 things. Number 1, content consolidation. We need to have the ability to take all this knowledge that I just showed on the left into one repository that is constantly updated. When you are now sending a query through a GPT or any kind of LLM, it's all real time. This repository has to be updated on an ongoing basis. It has to be automatic in order to avoid all this integration hell. We cannot do like tons of integration. So number 1 is content consolidation. Number 2 is content governance. Content governance basically means 2 very important things. 1, how do I know that the answer that Tom got now as a customer consists of knowledge or content that he's actually allowed to see? How do I know that? How do I monitor that? How do I control that? And the second thing around content governance, how do I know that throughout doing this, there wasn't any leakage of restricted content that is now in the web somewhere and is being used by other LLMs for other purposes that I had no intention of doing it. This governance challenge is a huge challenge of every enterprise. Very hard to solve, by the way. So we're talking 1, content consolidation, 2, content governance, and the third one is just GPT capabilities. What are the features, functionalities, and stuff that we need to provide so our customers can have better experience? I mean about AI functionalities that we can provide our customers. So the answer to the question, am I GPT ready, has to consist of those 3 elements of, do I know how to consolidate my content? Do I know how to govern it? And can I provide GPT capabilities? That's the background for how we see the importance and the readiness that we need to be in order to provide AI-based customer experiences. With this, I want to introduce Aditi. Aditi works for a company called Automation Anywhere. I'm sure she's going to elaborate on Automation Anywhere, one of the most amazing companies I've seen in terms of innovation. And as such, Aditi is also one of the most innovative leaders in this industry, always ahead of the curve in terms of early adopter, in terms of adopting new technologies and talking practically about what she does. There are people who talk and there are people who do. She does, okay? So she did, and today she's going to show it, but she's also going to talk about it. So Aditi, with this.
More about myself. So I've been leading product documentation at Automation Anywhere for a little over 4 years now. And in the last couple of years, I've especially focused on the adoption of a design thinking approach to content development. What this has seen is a far deeper collaboration amongst writers in my team, product designers, and product owners. It's led my team to have a seat at the table due to their very strategic role in shaping up the product experience. So who is Automation Anywhere? We are one of the leaders in the enterprise automation space, and we are the #1 cloud robotic process automation company. Our mission is pretty simple. It's really to empower people so that they can be creative and really realize their potential. And we do that through our intelligent automation solutions that take care of the mundane and repetitive tasks in their day-to-day work so that they can continue to focus on more higher value-added work. So I partnered with Zoomin to leverage their content realization methodology or framework to come up with this content value report to share with my executive and senior leadership audience the value that my content creates in a language that resonates really with them. So I'm not going to get into every single metric, but just to highlight a few, we were able to realize an annual support cost savings of $1.2 million. And again, we saw about a 212% jump in our case deflections and case resolutions through documentation. And all of this is based on data that comes in from Salesforce, which is our CRM tool, and we work closely with our support organization for that. We've also seen a very large jump in the number of returning users to our documentation portal. Now, returning users are users who are more likely to become paying customers. And if you look at an industry benchmark of 1 out of every 1,000 returning users becoming an actual customer, and then calculate that against the average selling price for an enterprise SaaS software subscription license, you're looking at about 5.5 million in revenue growth that can be contributed by documentation. Through this design thinking approach in the last couple of years, we've also seen a huge jump in our customer CSAT score. Our CSAT is a very central theme of our content strategy. And that 20% jump was largely attributed to this change or transformation in our content development processes. Our content continues to grow to keep up with our products' growing innovations. We also have very dedicated, focused SEO strategies in place, which help to make sure that our traffic to our documentation portal continues to increase, and we are the #1 web resource for Automation Anywhere. So more number of users come to our docs portal than any other portal for Automation Anywhere. Here's a little bit about our tool chain. So we use Oxygen, Web Author, and Ixiosoft is our CCMS, and we publish all of our content to our customers through Zoomin's platform. We also have Zoomin's Help widget, which is integrated with Pendo, which is our digital adoption platform, to provide contextual user assistance to our users. Through the Redoc plugin that's also available on the Zoomin platform, we are actually able to synchronize our Swagger API framework to a developer portal on our documentation portal. So the developer portal experience is embedded within our documentation portal for the benefit of our developer audiences. So why did we adopt GPT or an AI solution? I think one of the key drivers really was for us to be able to empower our users, empower our customers. When you use AI-based solutions, especially in the form of knowledge assistance, it helps to increase your customers' self-support, their ability to basically find answers easily without reaching out to support. So we are also seeing a lot of case deflections. And all of this leads to your customers feeling more satisfied. So that was really one of the primary drivers for experimenting with and accelerating adoption of this transformative technology. Another thing is we did want to continue to retain our competitive edge vis-a-vis our competitors externally, but also continue to stay as the most popular portal within Automation Anywhere. And I think you'd agree, if you want to stay competitive, you've got to continue to innovate, and adopting such transformative technologies, being open to experimenting with them, helps you to stay ahead of the curve and do just that. Our company is an enterprise automation company. We are making rapid innovation in terms of adopting generative AI within our intelligent automation solutions at an enterprise scale. Content is an integral part of the product. I'm sure you would all agree. It's an integral part of the product experience, and that's why we call it content experiences. So I think it's also very important then for content groups, content teams, to adopt and synergize and align with your own company's AI strategy, and make sure that you're also adopting these transformative technologies in your content, because that's also impacting your users as much as your product experiences. And then lastly, of course, there was, like many of you all might be facing, we do have a lot of executive and leadership interest in the adoption of these solutions in our day-to-day content development processes and frameworks. So I'm just going to switch gears a little bit and give you a live demo, actually, of GPT on our documentation portal. So, So let's go ahead. All right. So Zoomin Experiments is a pretty nifty feature that you have on the platform, which allows us to very easily turn on and turn off product capabilities. So what I'm going to go ahead and do here is I'm going to turn on Zoomin GPT on my documentation portal. So let's navigate back to our portal. Let's just refresh it to make sure that GPT has got turned on. So you can see here now, GPT has been embedded within my native search experience itself. The help text has changed to not only searching for content, but also asking a question. There was existing help text, but that help text now has also been enhanced with this verbiage here that our legal team and Zoomin's legal team collaborated on to inform users that, one, this is an experimentative technology, and two, that they should not really be entering any private confidential data when they are interacting with the system. So let's go ahead and ask GPT a question about one of our famous Gen AI infused automation solutions, and let's see what GPT turns up. Now, the difference here is a regular search string would not have had the question mark embedded at the end of it. So if I just gone ahead and typed that out, that would still perform like a regular search. To trigger or initiate GPT, you would want to ask it a question and append that with a question mark, and then go ahead and type enter. So let's wait for GPT to think and come up with a response. So you can see we've been taken to the native search experience that all of our users are very familiar and comfortable with. So it's not a new widget that's sort of demanding for their attention. I'm just going to scroll down a little bit. GPT is still typing out an answer. And there you go. So I'm familiar with this product, and we've had our product SMEs vet and validate this response as being very accurate. What's also nice is that you have a learn more link here that I can click on to read more information about this particular product capability. We continue to embed that very helpful verbiage here to let users know that this is still an experimental capability and that they should be aware of this. We also have a very nice ability to submit feedback. So I want to go ahead and let GPT know that it did a really great job. So, it's nice to always tell them that, right? So. And this feedback really helps to go back and further iterate on, because this feedback is all captured in our analytics tool that content teams, as well as like your technology teams like Zoomin, can investigate and look into to make further improvements. So let me just go back to our slideshow. So now that you saw GPT in action, it wasn't quite frankly that easy, though, to get it, adopted or implemented within our environment. There was a fair amount of objections, I think, and potential hurdles that we did have to cross. And I thought in my talk today, I'll share with you a little bit about how I was able to sort of navigate those. So one of the things I think that we have to be very clear about, at least in our implementation so far of Zoomin GPT, is that it has been configured to look at the content within your content set alone. So it's not going out there and going rogue and searching the open web for information. It's still looking at all of your product documentation, which is the source of truth for your customers. So it's been configured to only look into that for answers. The nice thing was that with this implementation, customers are not losing access to native and powerful search capabilities that they're already used to and they have on their platform. Because you saw it's very well embedded within the native search experience itself. It's not something that they have to go outside of, because that sometimes can be a cognitive load for them. We have a very powerful analytics capability that's now been added within the Zoomin Analytics tool that's capturing a lot of rich and very insightful metrics and data for us on how our customers are adopting this new technology. What is the kind of success they are facing or lack of it that they have with the tool. And this really gives us some good, rich data for us to go back as content teams and as a tools team to look into and try to see whether we can address any improvements in our content, or does it mean tweaking the model and just improving and training it more. Low fuzziness tolerance. And for this, I'm just going to once again go back into my, my documentation portal. So I'm going to go ahead and ask GPT a question actually about a product capability that is not supported within our product, that we sometimes have customer support cases about. Yeah, so you see here that the way GPT has been configured, it has been configured for a low fuzziness tolerance. So it's not going to make up and confidently give you a incorrect or wrong answer. The fact is that this product capability does not exist within Automation Anywhere in our current product portfolio. So GPT is more likely to tell you when it does not have an answer rather than coming up with an inaccurate one. So these were some things that definitely helped when we were demonstrating the value of adopting this technology, especially with stakeholders who are more customer facing as well as our legal team. So let's just go back to our presentation. I'm gonna go ahead and hide that. Okay. And like I said, we had our legal team partnering pretty closely with the Zoomin legal team, to make sure that they had crafted that verbiage that they wanted to have within the interface and available at different points as the users interacting with the system. And then lastly, the ability for us to give that feedback, I think, is super helpful. We saw in our own journey and our own experience that as we were internally testing, we had more external users testing, we had more people testing within our company. The feedback really helped to improve our content as well as, the model and train it to get better. So let me take you through our journey so far. We've sort of split it up amongst three broad milestones, so to speak. So at kickoff, we launched a design partnership with Zoomin. So the advantage of a design partnership is like you're really working with a beta solution out here with your technology partner. And they are also very open to the feedback that you give, because that feedback goes in improving the beta solution before it's made more generally available to the rest of their customers. So we launched this partnership with Zoomin. We sat together, figured out the modalities of it, the roles and responsibilities of each party. We also had our legal teams then weighing in, jumping in, having those collaborative discussions, and then also working on that legal verbiage and messaging to have within the interface. And once we had got our legal team's approval, once they felt satisfied that this was a solution that was going to not only just add value to our customers, but was also being extremely authentic, because our content is known as the single source of truth for customers. Once they were satisfied, they gave their approval, and then that's when Zoomin set up a GPT UAT portal for us, which sort of mirrored our documentation portal that we would now use for our user testing. So during the user testing phase, initially it was mostly the documentation and the UX teams that were assessing and playing around with the solution, to gather feedback and share feedback with Zoomin on our experience with the interactions with GPT. This actually led to, because it was a design partnership again, this led to a significant number of usability improvements to GPT itself. Like, for example, the placement of the collapsible Zoomin widget that appears along with your search results, or the introduction of the Learn More link that supplements the GPT response so that a reader can actually click on that and go and read that topic for more information. So at this stage, it was very much a design partnership, giving feedback, getting feedback, iterating on the beta solution, till we felt that now we were ready to move on to the next phase, where we were going to be testing more of GPT's performance from both an accuracy as well as coverage perspective. So accuracy, as the name says, is as the term conveys, it's about whether GPT gives you, the right answer. Coverage is the number of questions that get answered by GPT. So what we did was we picked about 50 sample questions that were actually based off of customer support cases. And we did very rigorous testing against these 50 questions through 3 different GPT models or variants: GPT 3.0, 3.5, and 4.0. And we tested these 3 variants against the same sample set of 50 questions. So this testing continued till we sort of reached a sweet spot of balance between accuracy and coverage that suited our context and our needs. And that's when we zeroed in on the GPT model that really works for us. Once we had achieved an about 85% benchmark, and let me just add here, we were not just testing the model and the performance. As part of our testing, we also identified a fair number of content gaps, places where the information did not exist in our documentation that should have existed. So we went back as a content team and improved and fixed those knowledge gaps. There were many situations where the content existed, but it was not optimized for search, so you couldn't find it easily. And the way GPT works, Zoomin GPT works, is it is searching for information and answers from within your content set. So your content definitely needs to be well optimized for search and findable. So we were continuing to make those improvements and enhancements to our content in parallel with the Zoomin team working on the model. So once we had achieved about an 85% benchmark in terms of the accuracy and the completeness of the responses we were getting, we opened up testing now to a wider audience within our team, and we invited a lot more customer-facing functions to start testing and playing around with the GPT with their own questions. So this was obviously now outside those 50 questions. And some of the customer-facing functions we involved were customer support, customer success, sales engineering, professional services, and so on. And we also had, of course, product owners as well as developers of those modules also testing out GPT performance. And then once we sort of reached a good satisfactory performance benchmark and the feedback was looking good, and we felt like, yes, now GPT was ready to be taken to an external audience, what we did was, through that nifty little Zoomin experiments feature that you saw on the platform, we opened up testing to a subset of external users. So not all users, a subset of external users who then started playing with GPT and were able to have it complement their existing search experience before making it generally available. So like I said, GPT data now is being captured a great deal by Zoomin Analytics. So we have a new dashboard within Zoomin Analytics that actually captures all of your interactions with the GPT system. So one of the things that you can see is obviously the performance in terms of both the accuracy as well as the number of questions that get answered over a period of time, week on week, month on month, and so on and so forth. We are also able to do a fair amount of investigation into GPT queries that did not return a response. So for example, you saw the one there where we asked it about how to pause queues and it did not give a response. So we definitely go and investigate as a team to figure out why does GPT not return a response? Is it valid because that product functionality is not supported, or is it because our content has not been optimized well enough for GPT to be able to find it? And then that's how we work closely with Zoomin to continue to make improvements to either the content as well as the model. And then the other interesting thing that we've also been able to gather from our metrics and data is really just how users are engaging with this. Do we find that they are adopting this solution? Given that it's very natively embedded in the search experience, so far, our trends and analytics show that there's definitely been interest in this, and they are seeing this as a nice complement to their existing search experience, something that's able to give them the answer like any other knowledge assistant would. So let's take a look at some new capabilities that Zoomin is introducing with GPT. These are definitely still right now in the testing phase. I want to put the disclaimer out there. And we have not yet implemented this on our production documentation portal. They are on our internal portal. And we as a team are still testing them out. But we thought we'd give you guys a sneak peek. So let's jump in here. I'm in my internal docs portal now, and this is a fairly long topic. And the reason the topic is long is because there's a fair amount of content in there. It is talking about and introducing our users to a very critical migration experience, an experience to migrating from our legacy products to our Automation 360 platform. So if you go right back on top, you can see that typically it would take users about 8 minutes to read through this very long topic. So the content summarization feature is an interesting capability that is now available for us to test, and will hopefully soon be available, generally available also, through GPT. So let's go ahead and see how GPT is going to summarize this long article, for the benefit of users who are probably hard pressed for time or just want to get the gist of a particular concept to aid their understanding. You can see here that it's come up with a pretty decent summary, which is definitely a lot shorter to read through. And what it's essentially telling you is the gist or the main points about this entire article here on migration, so that then users can make that decision on how much further they want to read or whether they've got the understanding based on this gist or not. And once again, here you have the necessary legal disclaimer as well, so that users are aware that this is still, very much an experimental technology. Let's move on to another feature. So this is the code explain feature. We have a fair amount of developer-oriented content on our documentation portal. So let's take a look at, getting GPT to explain this code snippet a little bit better and potentially help some of our developer audiences. So I'm not a developer, but I was able to, validate this with an engineer in my team, and they felt that this was doing a good enough job of being able to explain this to a new developer who would potentially probably be looking to consume and use our SDK content. And lastly, and this is actually one of my favorite features or favorite new feature of GPT, is the editorial copilot. So I think everyone loves using the term copilot. I know my company has also come up with an automation copilot. So this is an editorial copilot, and which is really serving to help your content creators and writers as an editorial assistant, helping out with potentially new suggestions on how to improve pre-release content before it goes out to your customers. So let's take a look and see what Copilot thinks about this particular concept topic, because concept topics are probably harder to write than some of the other content types. So we haven't yet had too many of our writers try this out, but the few that have had a chance have found that it's definitely given them instructions that were quite helpful. So it's nice to know that GPT did think that it was generally well written. So it's not horribly written content, but there are obviously areas for improvement, which I think writers can look at and assess, and then go ahead and iterate and improve on their content before it gets out, to their customers. All right, so let's move back into presentation mode. So we covered content summarization, the code explain feature, and then also editorial copilot. So I do have just about 8 minutes left, and I want to leave you all with a few tips that I thought helped me in navigating my team's, GPT journey through my organization. So I think one of the key lessons or an important aspect of this is to make sure that you are involving as much cross-functional, as many cross-functional stakeholders as you can as you're testing out this transformative technology. And you'd want to probably look at getting cross-functional stakeholders from customer-facing functions or customer interacting functions, especially customer support and CSMs and so on. What this does is that, it not only furthers their adoption and promotion of this technology, but we felt that it also, just helped, I think, elevate our function more internally, because they started looking at us as being definitely more innovative and thinking ahead of the curve when they saw us implementing something like this in the content development framework. you'd want to have a fairly robust and rigorous methodology to really test the performance of GPT that you're using, because with software content or product documentation, it really is the source of truth for your customers. So you don't want to take any chances. We had a really good framework that Zoomin provided us, where we were able to rigorously test across different variants and figure out what suited us and what worked well for us, so that we could achieve those performance benchmarks before we release it out to a bigger audience. So you'd want to pay attention to that, because that really helps to determine the success of such a technology, not only internally but even externally with your customers. And then lastly, many people within your organization may already be thinking about GPT. I think your experiments with GPT can not only show that you're an innovator or thinking ahead, but they could also potentially shape up and influence your own organization's AI adoption strategy or roadmap. And with that, I think we can take some Q&A, because we have about 5 minutes.
Hi.
Hi.
Earlier you said the content exists, but it was not optimized for the search results. So what do you do in order to make it optimized?
Yeah, so we went back and revised, or rather revisited and revised a lot of the metadata, right, within our content. A lot of the times you're not necessarily drafting content with terminology that always matches your user's mental model. So this whole exercise also taught us that we should probably be using the terminology that they are using, because that's what came up in the customer support cases and so on. So it was just a lot of, optimizing your content from a metadata perspective, adding those keywords, making sure that, your search tuning is also done in a manner which sort of ranks or stack ranks your title, short description, and so on. And what this did was it didn't just improve GPT performance, it basically improved the findability of your content irrespective, right? And that's what also led to those cases getting deflected. And then the metrics just showed that.
We have a question from the virtual track back here at DD. From Mandy. She wants to know, are you using GPT only for English content? Do you have any translated content?
No, so we do have translated content, and at this point in time, it's restricted to just the English content. Yeah. I think we have a question back there.
Well, we have to have the virtual audience here. That's why we're just need the louder.
Did you find that the AI gave you sometimes actual wrong answers?
Not really, because it was essentially looking at just our content set. So it was more that it was actually not coming up with answers, which was not great either. And that's why we had to go back and work with Zoomin to improve that. But I don't remember ever coming across a situation where it gave us a wrong answer.
Did you see, I'm talking about hallucinations.
No, we did not have that.
Okay, that's good.
So again, I think that's why it's so important to test not just accuracy, but also coverage, because you do find times where GPT is throwing up accurate responses, but then sometimes it's not answering many questions as well. And that's what it was doing initially in our testing. And then as we worked with Zoomin to sort of fine-tune things, we started seeing that coverage also go up along with accuracy. And that's when we reached that sort of sweet spot, the balance that I talked about, where both the right answers, but also more number of questions getting answered versus, like you saw, I'm sorry, I don't have information, or I don't have more context. Can you provide it? So we saw less of those happening.
We have a question right here.
Oh, yeah. Your journey slide from kickoff to when it was in general use, how long was that?
So it actually really depends a lot in terms of, and let's just go back to that slide. Oops. Yeah, so it actually depends on from organization to organization. We saw, I think, about close to potentially an 8-week cycle from the time that we kicked it off to the time that we actually went to a subset of external users. Yeah, about 8 weeks.
So if you need to incorporate like new terms or, vernacular, whatever that is it hard to incorporate that into the system?
Do you mean into my content or GPT?
The GPT, so that it understands that's, your specific industry specific or vertical specific term.
Right. So we already have that content in our glossary and in our terminology, and then GPT is actually just consuming it from that same content set. So there was nothing additional that we needed to do from our end to make GPT consume that.
Okay. I have a question. Since you're spanning multiple data sets, what if there are two conflicting answers? How does it decide which one is right?
Well, actually, the way our implementation is currently set up, it's actually just scanning the documentation portal content itself.
Right. Say there are two topics that say one's blue and one's red. Which one does it show?
I'm not quite sure, and I don't know if someone from the Zoomin team can help out here because we've never really come across that situation in our testing. But I would imagine, if there's testing and two users have got two different answers, and I think we as a content team first need to go back and look into our content and clean that up to make sure why there is conflicting information there. But we did not come across this in our testing. I don't know, Tom or Gal, I don't know if you have any situations from some other customers that may have had this. Yeah, I don't think so.
Hi there. Thank you for this presentation. It's been fantastic.
Thank you.
My question has to do with looking at the source of truth behind the answers.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you are looking from an analytics perspective, what topics are being used to generate the responses, or how that is impacting how you identify the content that is making an impact.
Mm-hmm. So analytics does give us access to that. That is the topics from which GPT is giving you the response. And the nice thing is the Learn More link now that's got added to the GPT response actually tells you exactly which topic it picked up the response from. We, anyway, as a team, were always very data-driven, so we would constantly look at analytics to see what content of ours was being consumed the most. If we had not tested out with those sample set of support questions that we got, the 50, we probably would have tested out GPT more in terms of what are those topics that have the most traffic in our content, and made sure that GPT responses that were coming in from those topics were accurate, and GPT was, covering more number of potential questions, different permutations and combinations of questions from those topics.
And we have one more question in the back.
Sure.
How long, you have a lot of documentation, I guess. How long did it take GPT to analyze it? Is that a quick thing, or did it take days, or?
I'm not sure. I think, again, this is something potentially the Zoomin team can answer, because I just know that the moment we got the legal approval, they had set up our UAT portal, which mirrored our docs portal, and they were like, look, the tool is ready for you guys to start testing out. So we as customers never had to do any of this heavy lifting. Cool. Thank you so much.